Good to again be with you and to address you today with so many good speakers here, and thank you for all coming out. It's good when we stand up, when people who are righteous want to stand up for unrighteousness, and we hope our voice will go across the nation. There might not be many of us here, but the word travels, as we know, and through Craig's posts and many others, that the word travels further through our nation. And can I just say at the beginning here, we thank God for law and order, and we thank God for the police. I had a police inspector in my congregation, he was one of my elders, and there's some good police. We're out in the streets on Wednesday, and I was talking to a policeman there, and a lovely guy, and he says, something, he's frustrated in the job. He says, when I started this job, I had one arm tied behind my back. He says, now I've got two arms tied behind my back. They feel frustrated. He says, I just want to come in, clock out. And what can happen is a lot of decent guys and girls that serve in the police force, and we need you. They take care of a lot of terrible things in life. Have to deal with rape and fraud and sexual filth and wickedness. They have to deal with murder incidents. They have to turn up and deal with all of that. So we applaud you and we thank you. And it's good that we're standing outside here and we recognise that. But unfortunately also, we have a government then that have to create the laws that these guys at the back of us are then called to enforce them. So it's a little bit the laws come from government and they become the enforcers. When the good laws come, it's good for us when we're dealing with crime, when we're dealing to make Scotland a better place, when we're dealing in fairness and goodness. But when the laws come in now, and actually they're not good laws, and all of us would agree with that, and it's causing a lot of differences now, it's causing a lot of chaos, and the poor police are called to now have to come and to deal with that because that is their job. So my heart goes out to you, and I pray that there will be an uprising. One of the policemen said that to me, that the police need to stand up against the government and say, let us go on with our job, for we are here to take care of the people and to take care of the nation of Scotland. That is our ultimate job, not to be the enforcers for a government that we can all tell just now, guys, are very corrupt and they're actually attacking the very values of our nation. So therefore we do thank them, and we just want to I just want to applaud them, but I want to encourage them as well in the job that they're doing. Their job is to protect the people and not to become lackeys of this government. Amen. Now, we've seen that in the named person scheme, didn't we? There was that big brother attitude in the super snoopers chapter, as it was called. And thank God it got flung out eventually, but all of Scotland, or the politicians, all agreed with it. And it really was intruding into the family's life. That your son or daughter could make a complaint against you, then they had a special person that they could speak to. And then, how terrible is that? An intrusion into the family life. That they would go and speak to someone and everything they would say would get recorded. My kids could really get fed up with me sometimes and say, see that dad of mine, blah, 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 blah. And then they would take that away and it could be recorded. It was obviously, thank goodness that got flung out. And then the recent one was the new hate crime laws that they've tried to bring in, or they have brought in. I pray and hope that it gets tossed out. They've just put it on the shelf just now. We need to raise our voice more and more. I'm sure the police would love to see to get rid of that, because it's creating their job. It's created them a mountain of work now. And how do you defend that? How do you charge that when somebody says something? Well, is he full of hate or is he not? Is it an observation of what it is? It was a recipe for disaster, and I pray that it will be the straw that breaks the camel's back, and it will bring down Humza Yusuf, and it looks like we could be in for that. So what we can see is to protect what people of disabilities, people with religion, people with sexual orientation, transgender identity. We have to protect all of these people. So effectively, anybody in your granny can make a complaint, as we just heard from Rosemary there, can make a complaint against you. And basically, what that's doing? It means we're all become little clives, has been said. We're all now arguing with each other. We're moaning at each other. We're complaining against each other. This is a common tactic of divide and conquer. There's nothing new about this motto. It goes back hundreds of years. Divide and conquer. If you can look it up, and I'll just read you one of the definitions of it. It's a strategy that involves causing division among individuals to weaken them, making them easier to manipulate and to control by fostering disputes and arguments against the people. That's what it is. We'll start fighting against each other, so we've all got complaints. We're all diverse, aren't we? We're all different. We've all got a different DNA. but we've all got different views and different things. So now I can start arguing and fighting with this man, this man. We're all going to be fighting with our neighbours. They're deliberately doing this, friends, so that they can, if we fight amongst themselves, they can bring in all these laws to dominate us. We know that was the greatest persecutors or the infiltrators of that was the Nazi party, Hitler. He used that phenomenally. There was a man called Joseph Goebbels, propaganda machinery. He was part of the politicians. And he sat down and he deliberately demonized the Jews and many other people, I might add. We're seeing a lot of demonizing of the Jews today, and everyone says, that's absolutely terrible. It's not their land, it's the Palestinians' lands. Well, that is up for debate, friends. But everybody now is rising up in hatred. We see in America, it happened in the 1930s. To the point was, then, let's get rid of them and exterminate them. So we had to build up an agenda against them. And this is what we're seeing today, isn't it, as well? Anybody will say anything against what they are trying to promote. They'll use hate speech against us, and now they come knocking on our door. That is very, very clear. How politics works. It was interesting as I was looking at some of this, the misleading information they used to promote their political cause. Do you remember a man called Peter Mandelson? I refuse to call him Lord Mandelson or Sir Mandelson, but he was there in the Labour's camp, I might add. And he was nicknamed the Doctor of Spin. That's what they called him. And that was what that means is truth with a spin. Truth with a spin, my friend, is a lie. It has the appearance of truth, it has the appearance of goodness. But I want to tell you this, it's got an ulterior motive in the background. He was also known, and you can actually Google it from yourself, he was called the Prince of Darkness. Do you know that about Mr. Peter Mandelson, who was very much involved in our Tony Blair, our last one of those so-called good leaders that everybody was cheering about when they came into power. And I've not got a problem with any of the political parties. Actually, I wish we would see some goodness and righteousness rising up in their ranks. But when we see here, they again was promoting a lot of stuff as well and giving the appearance of goodness until they get into power. And then we get fed up with the Labour as well. And then we've got SNP in. What are we going to do? Bring in the Labour again or bring in the Tories? I'm not here flying any colours for anyone. One thing I do like about the Scottish Family Party, they nail their colours to the wall. They're not hiding away what they believe. A man's a man and a woman's a woman. And I think most of us in Scotland would agree with that. We would say, yes, amen to that. Why should we stomach anything else that they want to bring in and say, now we've got to recognise something else, which is totally against the culture of the majority of people. Thank God back in those Nazis days there was a man called Martin Niemöller. He was a theologian, he was a Lutheran pastor. And he stood up, he's seen the wickedness of Hitler, and he took a stand against him. And he actually said this, and I read it once when I was in one of these concentration camps that I visited. He says, they came from the communists, but I wasn't a communist. I didn't say anything about it. They came from the socialists, but I wasn't a socialist, so I never did anything about it. They came for the Jews, but hey, I wasn't a Jew, so I wasn't going to say anything about it. Why rock the boat? He says, then they came for me, but there was nobody to say anything against it. You know, wickedness triumphs when good people say nothing and do nothing. Thank God, the people of Scotland, that we are willing to stand up for what is good and what is right, to stand up for our rights, I might add. So we have to say again here this day, that we as the people of Scotland said, enough is enough. We want Scotland back. We want our nation back. Our nation's changed. Is it just me that's noticed the change over, can we say, the last 40 years? But how quickly that change is coming. Our culture, our values have changed. I remember those days, and I remember talking to that policeman the other day. I remember the days when you could get a kick up the backside from a policeman when you stepped out of line. And then when you went home to see your mammy, you'd get another wee slap again across the head. I brought up in school when you got the belt. Yes, that was it. There was nothing bad about it. You stepped out of line, you got the belt. Didn't kill me. I've not got marks and scars on my hand, but it was a deterrent. I was brought up the days when you see a mother giving her wee kid a good smack in the backside when she was outside, when the kid was screaming and playing out of line. Nothing wrong with that. Now it's demonised. If you're caught doing that, goodness sake, you're going to face the jail. And people will hate you for it. Where did all that come from? Because they deliberately drip-fed us. Propaganda machine, Joseph Goebbels. They deliberately do that. They demonise something. They drip-feed it into society where, oh, that's a terrible thing. Wasn't a terrible thing 30 years ago. Nobody actually complained about it. But thank God there was this man, he rose up and he spoke out. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, another pastor that stood up because he's seen the writing on the wall. He's seen the trajectory of where we were going. And they stood up and took a stand. And we know eventually Hitler took over, or was planning to take over the world with a new world order. Today, we have the globalists, and it's a new world order agenda. Our government are not ruling over us, friends. There's orders coming from above. The globalists. And now you're not called to be a Scottish citizen. You're a world citizen. I'm a global citizen. That's what they're saying today. We're all one. Sorry, we're not all one. I'm Scottish and I'm proud to be Scottish. And yes, I'm also British and I'm proud to be British. I would rather be involved with Britain than stuck under the Europeans. And that's where SNP were taking us. They wanted us to be part of Europe, to be led by Europe. I would rather be led by Britain than Europe. But more importantly, I would rather be led by God. All of us are looking for peace. We're looking for something that will bring peace to our land, that will bring prosperity to our land, that will bring goodness to our land. I don't want to be living worrying that my neighbour's going to break in and steal my goods and my car's going to be smashed up and somebody's off in my car. I don't want to be worrying about crime rising, and we're seeing now there's a breakdown in law and order. And yes, we're not necessarily going to blame the police for that. It's difficult. They've got a difficult job, and there's an explosion of it. Everybody's stealing and everything. And we're seeing the whole collapse of what we would say is valuable. Yes, as Craig says, Scotland once had a great history. We were known across the world as a Christian nation. Our foundation was on this word, on this book. Do you know there was a time in Parliament, I might say a long time ago, when the government of the day opened up with prayer and then they carried on with the business. Glasgow was once known, like Glasgow flourished by the preaching of the word and the praising of the Lord. That's when Britain and Scotland had its most blessed time, when we honoured God and we brought God into the nation. And this book is full of good values. Love your neighbour, take care of your neighbour, look after the poor. What is it we've seen now in the Scottish Government are planning to do? We're now going to look at assisted suicide. Oh, assisted suicide. It's always done with a veneer, isn't it? You know, poor souls, they're suffering. Look at the agony. Do the decent thing. Put them out of their misery. It's like walking out of a room, put a gun in someone's head and says, right, wait till I get the side before you pull the trigger. We're demonising these old people, making them feel unworthy. Worked all their lives. Some of them maybe fought for our nation, and then they get to an age now they're getting a wee bit do-wally. We'll just put them out of their misery. Do you know that's what Hitler did as well? He went into the mental hospitals and says, well, they're not good, are they really? Let's just clear out the mental hospitals, shoot them. Anybody who may have been disabled, well, you're no good to the system. Let's take them out because it's going to cost money to look after them. Why take... See, when you treat people like animals, when you get rid of God, then we become no better than a chicken or a hare. Do you know what I'm saying? There's nothing to be grounded in. Friends, can I tell you right now, and all of you, maybe a lot of you out there are guilty of as well, we don't need God. Well, I want to tell you, this is alternative of what we're getting now. Yeah, let's throw God out of the country. Shut our churches. We don't need that book. See, this book, in fact, this is something they want to demonise. This book. That brings goodness. Love your neighbours, take care of them, take care of the poor, feed the hungry, look after one another, treat each other as special because we were created in the image of God. Can I tell you this? There's something unique about the human race. We're unique. We have emotions. We have a conscience. You ever seen a lion having a conscience? It's just about to eat the wee zebra, and all of a sudden it stops and goes, oh dear me, that's terrible. We are better than animals, but we're being reduced to animals with laws that's going to turn us against one another. Friends, can I just say, let us rise up. Let us make Scotland great again. And it's not a political party, I might add, that's going to make Scotland great again. It's bringing God back into our communities, back into our schools. When the Lord's Prayer is said in the schools, we've outlawed all of that, haven't we? Let's stop preaching filth and immorality, and let's start preaching the word of God again. I want to tell you this, Scotland will be great again. Scotland will be great again when we bring God back into this land and open up our hearts to living God again. That is the answer. God is the answer. But thank you again. It's a great opportunity to speak. But listen, we've all got a common enemy. All of us have got a common enemy. The Prince of Darkness. Yes, Peter Mandelson got the name for that. because they spin truth. I am fed up with lies. I'm fed up. This government's going to say they're going to promise us the moon. Don't worry, when we come in, the NHS, the railways will be flowing. We'll make life better for you. I remembered a friend, he was so caught up in politics. Ivor, and when Labour got, he was dancing in the streets. He was bottles of champagne. He was dancing for 2 days. And I says, Ivor, do you know something? I'll tell you this, they're not going to solve the problem. I met Ivor a year later. He was demoralised. That was the new Labour. Was not the Labour that he thought was going to fix the problems. Listen, guys, nobody's going to fix the problems other than God himself. Now, God bless you all. May the peace of God be with you, and may the love of God touch your hearts today. Amen.